Being recorded. Thank you, Professor Sciacovelli, for being here. Before I give you the microphone and before we start this interview, we start also for the respect and welcome of the guest speaker. We start with the national hymn of the nationality of the speaker involved. In this case, you are Italian, so we will start by listening to the national Italian hymn. So, thank you. Welcome again. And I leave the speech to our guest, Professor Annita Larissa Sciacovelli. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Yes, thank you very much. Alors, je voudrais remercier toutes les personnes qui sont aujourd'hui présentes. Je ne savais pas qu'on pouvait même parler en français, mais je voudrais remercier tous pour cette invitation. And I will switch in English because I prepared in English. And although French language is always so nice and give me back to my memories when I studied it. And thank you everybody for invitation. Thank you for President Emilio Nuzzolese, Professor Nuzzolese for inviting me and other presidents. Ladies and gentlemen, my speech of today is about the importance of cybersecurity. And I will start the first topic of cybersecurity is to understand what is cyberspace. Actually, we all live in cyberspace. We all use cyberspace, and whether we know it or we don't know it. We use it in a huge way because we, due to the pandemic COVID-19, we drop in the cyberspace. We were obliged to use it in order to circumvent the isolation that we have to experience. And so we use it for social networking, and we use it for education at all levels, starting from the primary school to the university, and without the possibility to have like Zoom meeting or Teams lessons, it would have been really very difficult to live these 2 years. And also business meetings and professional meetings and governmental meetings were organized in cyberspace. So we drop in a digital age and in a digital society. Some sociologists, they told us that we have been already since many years in the digital age, but now almost everybody is using the cyberspace. Cyberspace and cybersecurity, the approach that we have as a specialist is a holistic approach. That means that we consider also the philosophical aspect, sociological aspect, juridical one, because the laws about cybersecurity, I mean cyber law, is slowly developing. I talk from this side of the hemisphere, and in Europe we have a huge attention on how can we manage with cyberspace. Because if we describe it from a technical point of view, what is cyberspace is a domain that is comprised of different groups. Mainly cyberspace is composed by computers, servers, devices who are capable of running software's application for various information and operation needs. And software applications and data can be defined as digital information used by computing machine and softwares. And what is more important is the communication infrastructure, so that all computers and devices and servers are connected with each other, or wired or non-wired. So this can be a technical definition, but what I like to explain in a more comprehensive analytic way. What is, besides this, from a strategic point of view, NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, defined cyberspace as a fifth domain of of warfare. That is, we have other domains that are the territory, land, we have the sea, we have air, and we have outer space. So all these spaces can be also used for attacks. We are very lucky, our generation is very lucky, because we did not experience the Second World War. So we have a strategy of defense in NATO, and also we're starting to have it in European Union, also the thing about having a European defense strategy beside NATO. But what is really striking and interesting is that actually cyber attacks are very, very common, more than we can ever even imagine. And these are not only conducted by hackers group that act for criminal reasons, but we have many attacks who are state-sponsored. And these impose us as jurists and also as a citizen, first of all, to afford the problem and to try to understand how to defend our cyberspace. Another important characteristic of cyberspace is that cyberspace is not divided like land or territories. We know that in Europe has its own borders, no? External borders and internal borders. Also, the countries you mentioned where you live on the other part of the hemisphere, the other of the world, we know that we have to defend our territory from military attacks, or it can be we need to defend it from terrorist attack. And we know exactly where the threats come from. If we are afraid of a military attack or a terrorist attack, we know how to defend ourselves. And we know the lines, we know the frontiers, we know the limit of the lands. While the cyberspace is characterized by not having such a distinction external or internal, because the cyberspace is characterized by interconnectivity. That is, there are no borders, no physical borders. This means that as a state, we're trying, as a jurist, we're trying to understand and to create the concept of beside the territorial sovereignty, that is very clear to everybody of us, to create a notion of digital sovereignty. But although this digital sovereignty means that we have to defend it, but defense can only come thanks to a collaboration with other states. And when we think also of cyberspace, we have also a cyberspace in our houses, because we have a lot of we have the Internet of Things. We use many devices in our house. We have computers, we have notebooks, we have laptops, we have printers, we have smartwatches, smart telephones. All these systems are working thanks to cyberspace. So cyberspace and cybersecurity is not something that deals also only with external attacks that I will also talk today, but also deals with our personal, financial, familiar safety, and security. So I want to first to transmit this message that cyberspace and cybersecurity is not something distant from us, but also this with our personal, I can tell you with our personal bank account, for instance. And also with our documents, with our health data or financial data, because we try to store, we all store them in a cloud. And the safer it is a cloud, the safer are our documents. I mean, health documents. Everybody of us has made the clinical analysis or clinical exams that are stored in a cloud. So the safer is the cloud, the safer are our data. For instance, we also care about our bank account. We used to use our bank account to make a purchase online, and so we need to protect them. And what I would like also to tell you is that defining cyber threat, starting from the problem with the cyberspace, the second aspect we should consider is which are the vulnerabilities that, and which are the cyber threats that we can be a target also. In my work, I'd like to explain it in a simple way, but also that it's very clear. We have small threats, medium threats, and big threats. Let me say that we are the target of small threats. Small threats can be, for instance, phishing. Phishing is a system of phishing is a digital message that we can receive through a mail, and usually sent to fool people into clicking a link inside it. For example, we receive an email message with a malicious code sent presumably by one of our contacts. And if we click this link, we get this malicious code inside our computer. And this malware is called technically, can also enter in our codes and in our data, and can steal our digital identity, or also steal our money from our digital bank account. So that's why I say small threats, because small, considering comparing to the other one. Dealing about medium threats, I think of a company and we know that actually companies have been targets of many ransomware attacks. What is a ransomware attack? Ransomware is a system through which a hacker group can enter into a computer system by the backdoor or it's very difficult to understand when and how it entered. It's because the cyber gangs use a very sophisticated system of entrance. And so it's difficult to understand when they enter and if they enter. That's why as a cyber specialist, I always suggest to have always to care about risk assessment constantly, to check if there is because there are many specialist companies who can help to analyze whether a company is a target of a ransomware or other malware, other malicious activities. So ransomware, the cyber gang enters in the system and encrypted all the data inside the technical organization and the computers of the company, blocking the whole system. And to have the data back, that is, they encrypted them, to read them once again, the company has to pay a ransom, has to pay a sum of money. I can tell you that this sum of money, usually the average is between $250,000 till also we arrived to this year to a big request of $50 million. And the famous ransomware that were organized by the cyber gangs were against Colonial Pipelines, who is a very big company that in America transport fuel from Texas to New York. And it was completely blocked by this ransomware. And the request was $50 million. It was really a very high request. And ransom is very common especially in the United States. And we also in Italy, we were victims of ransomware. The Regione Lazio, there was a system of reservation for COVID vaccine. But another, I can say ransomware can also be terrible for the health data. In last June, there was a ransomware attack against the Irish national health system. It was completely blocked in the whole Ireland. So all the data of the Irish patients and Irish citizens were blocked, were encrypted. Encrypted means that it was not possible to read them anymore and to use them. If somebody does not pay this ransom, the cyber gang usually behave in the following way, or it sell the data in the dark web, and so it never gets back the data, or it can also destroy the data. And this is a very big problem for companies, not only because they lose all the data of the clients, but in case of patients, you can imagine that all the health data of surgical operation or people with diabetes will have big problems too with the visits that they have to do, or the healthcare, their healthcare. And these are usually called as distributed denial of service. But I also would like to have you enlighten about the characteristic of these cyber gangs. I was astonished by the fact that they use fantastic fancy names, like coming out from really from a fairy tale book or some saga of 007. Their names sometimes are the name they usually use because they are very famous cyber gangs, like Dark Side, or like Re-Evil, or like Sprite Wizard, or they usually work on dark web and dark web, and they also created, they're very sophisticated, because for these cyber gangs they work hundreds of people, acres, and these acres, they also create a very sophisticated system. They sell their service. In fact, for example, they created many platforms, commercial platforms, network platforms, where they sell ransom as a service. They put their platform at disposal of the criminal organization, and they can do the job for others. So it's a very the cybersecurity. Really, it's very difficult to. We have many attacks and very little opportunity to defend. And when I think also to a big attack, thinking about a big attack, it really is problematic. It's when the attack is directed toward the target of the attack is a state. In 1984, there was a wonderful American movie called Star Wars, when a kid succeeded in entering in in the system, operating system of the American defense, and there was really a risk to create initiate a nuclear war between Soviet Union and United States. And when United States President Ronald Reagan watched at this movie, after seeing it, he asked to this military attaché, military counselor, if it was really like this. And the reply of the military attaché was that it can be worse than this. In fact, so this is a movie, but in reality, something happened in 2007, and it was the first case of a cyber attack against a state. The state was Estonia. Estonia was attacked starting from the 27th of April 2007. The attack was conducted against the Estonian parliament, Estonian ministries, banks, also water plants and electric grids, also newspapers. So it was a massive attack against one state. It was the first time it ever happened. So also NATO was not ready to recognize that this attack could be considered as an attack directed against the state. Now, after as a first time, it was difficult for us to qualify it as an international lawyers as an attack that could bring the NATO to use Article 5 of the treaty, NATO treaty, that authorize self-defense. That is, that the other states, member states of NATO could react military against the state because this was a state-sponsored attack. But who attacked Estonia? Estonia presumably was attacked by Russia because at that moment there was a friction between the two states because Tallinn, the Estonian government wanted to place in a different place a bronze statue remembering the Soviet military period. And Estonian wanted to remove this bronze statue of the Russians, of the Soviet soldier, from the main square of Tallinn. And this is a coincidence. And I would like also to explain that it's very difficult to understand from where a cyber attack started, because cyberspace permits to have a very fast attack, to have a very wide attack. And I will tell you how, also considering what I've told you, it was a simultaneous attack of parliament, ministries, and I say also factories and companies. But cyberspace permit also to have to be anonymous, and it's very difficult for what we call digital forensic to understand from where. So we suppose that it was started from Russia. And also the other attacks that I mentioned before, like the Irish healthcare system, or the pipeline attacks to pipelines, colonial pipelines, presumably they started from Russia sponsored hacker groups, or what we might say that Russia knew that the attacks were conducted by its territory, but did not comply to what is an international obligation. That is to try in any case to prevent that its territory is used for malicious attacks. This is valid for military attacks, and we also apply it to cyber attacks. We make an analogical application as international lawyers, because we we are still trying to write the rules of cybersecurity. I can tell you that the United Nations is strongly working on it. We have an expert group of 25 international experts and that are working to define which are the rules to be applied, but it's not easy because what is very important is that the state have to collaborate each other. The other we can take the who are the main players of the cyber attacks. As I've told you, there are politically motivated cyber attacks conducted by state or by non-state actors that act with the help of states. The digital forensic tells us that the states who are mainly involved in these political motivated attacks are Iran, Russia, and China, and also North Korea. They want to these are politically motivated. Then we have criminal motivated attacks, cyber attacks that are motivated because of the gain of money, like ransomware. Usually is because the cyber gangs wants to earn a lot of money, and I've told you there's a huge amount of money that from a cyber attack can be obtained by a group. And then there are also ideological and anarchist activists like Anonymous who wants to, these are individuals or groups that are motivated by anarchist or anti-establishment ideology, or by the need to show off to the social environment about their capabilities. Although they are very small, they can create damage also. And now I also would like to add something. Probably the next terrorist attack will be conducted by a click, I mean, through a computer. It has been a long time, many years, that cyber specialists tells, I'm afraid that the next 9/11 will happen not by the fact that terrorists can use the computer, entering computer, for instance, in the airport tower, airport flying control tower, and through the system, and also creating a big mess in the air traffic. And so it can be caused directly by using, I mean, cyber terrorism. Cyber terrorism also is developing, especially now during pandemia, because terrorists are more and more have the opportunity and the time to stay on the computer, and they create actually a cyber caliphate. So ISIS created a cyber caliphate, and we are experiencing now cyber jihad. Cyber jihad is very dangerous because although we know there are a difference between Sunni and Shia, and they don't have any good relationship, but although cyber jihad is creating a system where they virtually can work together and organize cyber attacks. So European Union is working hardly to create a strategy to have a digital strategy, to create a digital shield, and to have a common level of cybersecurity. So we have also to think about it. And I know that New Zealand has been, unfortunately, has experienced hate speech online, and the online hate speech of the Christchurch terror attack must be also controlled. So if I can have my intentions was not to create terror or to among us, but is to be aware of the importance of cybersecurity, because each person, each of us, when he's using their computer, as a very important, it's very important that has respect what we call cyber hygiene. Like when we come back home, we all use, after COVID, I mean, we use all this gel to, against bacteria, against virus, and the same hygiene we have to use it when we open our computer, whether at home or whether we work in a company or whether we are employees or whether we are government official. It's very important that we respect, and we also teach it in cyber hygiene education is very, very important, starting from kindergarten and then to primary school and then go on. What I would like to say is that we have to be aware about cyber threats all the time. And if I can give you, but these cyber genes I follow myself first, is that we should not open suspicious emails. In case of doubt, we don't have to open a suspicious email. We always need to use original software, and we don't have to use shortcuts or not the original one. We should also subscribe to the highest security clouds providers, because this way we save our data, but we also permit the national cyber perimeter that every state is trying to create to defend also its strategic and essential infrastructure. So remember that we have to care about inner cybersecurity, in-house cybersecurity, and also external one. And also ensure to use a proper password management. More generally, I would like also to say, for people who work in the government and in the companies, that it's very important to have an early warning system. That is, this is given by state through the activity of the intelligence agencies are very, very important. As a European, I can tell you for the first time, I was astonished that the European Court of Human Rights, that is always cares a lot about human rights, permitted to intelligence agencies to check, also to make a preventive check of cybersecurity threats, because they are very, very dangerous. Every state, every nation wants to avoid what has happened to Estonia. And we have just to remember that not a few years ago, the same thing happens to Georgia. It was probably something casual, but it's happened in 2019 in Georgia, while there was a conflict with Russia. So it may happen. The other thing is to prevent, to have a proactive shielding, to use protection softwares, and to detect. There are also corporate breach of security and defenses protocol who may be very useful at our levels. And in case of attack, it's very important that each company, each state, each government institution has its own cyber crisis management teams. So following this rule, it will be very important to avoid this small, medium, and big threat of what I was talking to. And I would like to conclude telling that behind every computer, there is a human being, and also behind every cyber attack, there is human being. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that I was clear enough, because it's not an easy topic to explain, but and I thank you for listening, for your patience, and Professor Nuzzolese, for giving me the chance to talk about such an important and delicate topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Larissa Sciacovelli. I think you probably gave us a very good insights and at least we start raising some awareness on the security breaches and the difficulties and crisis that we could face just by clicking on a touch screen on our smartphone or on our laptops when we connect to the internet. In your idea, the tips for let's say an humble person who lives in the house and just want to have a smartphone and the Wi-Fi and would like to enjoy internet but would like to be secured, is it like an issue of having an antivirus, or should we do anything more than this?
I think antivirus is enough. I told you that the best thing is to renew and to upload always the new programs that are considered. The problem is that such sort of devices like printers or like the things you told they are in your house, they have a very low level of security. And so in most of cases, cyber attacks comes from these small systems, these systems of this IoT, Internet of Things, to because we don't have such a high system like the printers doesn't have at all. For instance, our printer system of security. So normally they are used by the attackers. So I cannot tell you, there is no zero risk. It's not possible to have a zero risk. And I can tell you that sometimes, like in big companies, or it's difficult to understand, or also in government institutions, or for instance in courts, when the cyber gangs enters through the back doors of the computer, sometimes it's impossible to understand if there is a cyber gang entering, if the cyber gang has filtrated, taken the data, substituted the data, and for how long it stays, because sometimes they behave in such a way not to show their presence. So they take all out like money or like data or like our credit card data or our health data, because data are gold now. They can be sold in a dark web, or they say it can be sold to big companies to know which our taste, which is our, how do we spend money, which our political, religious inclination, orientation. So data are very, very important. And what we are afraid of, I can tell you in Italy, we have a big problem with organized crime like mafia or like, we're trying to find a solution. If a cyber gang enters in the court system and enter where in the files of the court decision, this file can be taken away and substituted by others. So if, for instance, a sentence condemn a boss of mafia, it's very difficult to guarantee the security of this file of the decision that cannot be taken by the criminal organization, taken out and substituted with another one, for instance, not recognizing the responsibility of this boss of mafia. I'm trying to also to explain the many dangerous aspect of why cybersecurity is so important, because nowadays we have everything is online, everything we consider.
There is Andreas, our member who raised the hand. Please, Andreas, can you just speak on your microphone?
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor, for your presentation. Mille grazie. And I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned try to have your data in a very secure cloud. What is a very secure cloud, or what could you give us any information on how we could take care of this?
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Vielen Dank für Ihre, thank you very much for your questions. And high security cloud providers, if I can say some commercial one, like that use OneDrive, Google Drive, or something like that. I mean, there are some high security cloud provider, and the best thing is to use them. I mean, this also as a cybersecurity specialist, I would suggest this one. I mean, there are many, and their system of security is very, very high. Although, as I've told before, there is no zero risk for nobody. And unless we follow all the instruction and to update all software or hardware and use all updates available, it's the best solution. It's like when like with COVID-19, everybody of us is trying not to be, thanks to vaccine, thanks to using mask, we're trying to avoid, but it's not possible to avoid it 100%.
Let me highlight that Professor Sciacovelli is an independent speaker tonight. She has no interest in any commercial thing. She has just cited some, she is totally independent and without any benefits. There is a question on the chat regarding how can somebody practice network security and become maybe a cybersecurity expert or specialist? Is there a training or courses? How do you do?
Yes, as an independent, I would like to also thank you, Emilio, for specifying this. I talk as a technician. My approach is as a specialist. I work in the university with tenure, so I'm not paid by anybody. And to become a cybersecurity specialist, it depends on which aspect. And nowadays we have this holistic approach that is, in order to understand cyberspace and cybersecurity, for instance, I attended many courses held by informatic engineers. So first I had to understand what is cybersecurity. It's really hard because it's a new language, it's everything new. I am a jurist. And then I work, for instance, I am also a member of the Italian Society for the Studies of Intelligence. In cyber intelligence is very important and is strictly linked. I can tell you that in my group of work about cybersecurity and cyber warfare, I am the only jurist. The others are, I almost work only with engineers. And but I also read something and study something about social network as a sociologist and as a psychologist, and also philosophy. It's also very important. And what I forgot to say is the importance of artificial intelligence in understanding when there is a cyber attack, because artificial intelligence is able to detect so many elements that we can use to understand when there is a cyber attack. So I would suggest to young people, and also not young, like me, to start working on cybersecurity, because it's our present and it will be our future. UNESCO, the United Nations Institute working for Education and Culture, said that 65% of the future jobs and works are still to be invented, to be created. And I think that cybersecurity next 3-5 years, there is a need of cybersecurity specialists with a different profile. I mean, as an engineer, as a jurist, because we still have to write the norms. Cyber norms are still to be written.
One last question, which is more concerned by our guest, Madison, involves the idea of how much actually nowadays a company should start considering investing on top of the investment to open a company. Then you have to consider also the investment in dollars for all these data protection and security reason. What do you think should be like the amount or the percentage on top of a company investment?
Oh, thank you for the question. Very, very, very interesting. Yes, we have also economists and statistics working as a cybersecurity specialist, because every company, from the smallest one to the biggest one, has to take an amount of money to spend for cybersecurity. And the companies who do not have such an approach, they are very risky, because they risk that all the data of the clients can be stolen. And thanks to this question, I gave me also the opportunity to add something that I forgot. It's about cyber espionage. Companies or professionals have to protect their intellectual properties or the data of the clients. While espionage in ancient times or last century times was very difficult to do, they had to get physically in a building, like in a 00 movie, and take the papers where the intellectual properties or design or also industrial design were stored. Now it's really very, very easy for a well-prepared hackers to enter in a computer and to steal intellectual properties, business properties, design, everything like that. So, and that's why I cannot tell you the concrete amount of money, but it's always necessary that every company make a risk assessment, a cyber risk assessment, and has a person who can deal with both aspects. That is, cybersecurity means not only from an engineer point of view, but also from economical point of view. And we are trying to prepare professionals that can also quantify the amount of money that a company has to invest in cybersecurity. Also, because do not forget, well, in Italy, a lot of companies like Gucci, like Ili Cafe were attacked. Most of the time, they don't say that they were targeted by an attack, because they are afraid of their reputation. Mm-hmm. They say also banks or great financial institutions have been attacked. They are afraid because of the clients can lose their faith and trust in the company. Okay. So yes, okay. I hope I.
Yes, Professor. Thank you. It's 9 o'clock. It is. You cannot accept any more questions, but it was really amazing, the amount of information you gave us, and also the awareness you have raised among us. Everybody is using the Internet of Things every day. Thank you again. Thank you, Professor Larissa.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone who enjoyed this meeting. Next week on Tuesday, as I said, another colleague on anthropology from University of Zagreb, from Croatia. Enjoy the rest of the day. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. We'll see you next week.